How's it going, YouTube? It is the Fantasy Football Advocate speaking, and this is the first post of the channel. If you know me from Instagram, you probably know how I operate, and if you're from YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Let's get right into the Stafford news, because obviously you guys all know the quarterback swap. It was very crazy, but let's get into the fantasy aspects that will happen with this deal that you kind of didn't realize. So we're going to start off with the Los Angeles Rams, and what the Rams are getting is a higher deep ball percentage guy. Stafford has a 42.6 deep ball completion percentage, 79.2% true completion percentage, and most importantly, a higher average yards per attempt than Jared Goff. And what this is going to do is it is going to elevate the offense and allow some of these guys to run deeper routes, and something we didn't really see. Now, for Matthew Stafford, this is going to be huge, and for the wide receivers, but let's get right into the Cam Akers thing. And Cam Akers was fourth highest in the NFL with 7.3 average defenders in the box in 2019. And that's something that won't happen again with Matthew Stafford. They're going to have to respect the pass game, and not a lot of teams really respected Jared Goff. So that's something that is going to keep in mind. So with the Woods and Cup, what you're going to get is you're going to get guys who, one of them is probably going to stay around that 7 yards per target. As you can see, 7.2 and 7.8 yards per target. But what you're going to get is one of these guys is going to up that to about 9 yards per target. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow one of these guys to have breakaway speed. And something we haven't really seen from Woods or Cup is the ability to score on the big play. Unless it's a reverse in the 12 personnel, a jet sweep, you don't really see these guys score on big plays. It's normally chunks down the field. But what you're going to get is you're going to get one of these guys, or Van Jefferson, that is going to be able to run those deep routes and do it at its exceptional rate, really. And what I'm going to say for this is the guy I expect to more run intermediate to deeper routes is Cooper Kupp. And the reason I'll say this, he has a higher yards per target. And yes, he's known as more of a slot guy, more of a route runner. But you can kind of get more deep route runs in there. And on a play action, you're going to, especially with Cam Akers, a guy that a lot of the league respects a lot, you're going to be able to get guys who are going to be open on a crosser on the middle of the field, similar to the Titans in a way. If you know how that works, you can run those deep crosser routes because you know Stafford's going to be accurate. Again, it's a 15% completion percentage difference between Stafford and Goff. And this opens the door also for Tyler Higbee. Tyler Higbee's a guy who last year had high expectations and really had the hype. And that's going to it's going to drop down his stock. And what it's going to do, top 8, we saw a lot of top 5 hype last year. In my opinion, with Gerald Everett in free agency, and they're not going to likely re-sign him. They have a guy in Bryson Hopkins out of Purdue. They're really going to be able to use him in more ways. They're going to run a lot of 12 personnel, but Tyler Higbee's a guy that can be a post-hype top 8 guy. Now, we're going to see later in the year how that affects it, but in my opinion, that's actually really solid for him. Well, and then the last thing I want to know with the Rams is obviously the wide receiver 3 scenario. Obviously, we know Josh Reynolds is a free agent, and they likely don't have the money to bring him back. So that's really Van Jefferson's role. And how is he likely going to take advantage? To me, in Dynasty, if you're able to get a 3rd or even a 4th round pick for Van Jefferson, I would take it because these other 2 wide receivers are locked in for at least 3 to 4 years. With Woods being 3 and Kupp being 4. So that's something that you really need to realize. Van Jefferson, if you can sell him in Dynasty, I would. But in redraft, could he possibly be a wide receiver 4? That's something that we could take into account. Now with the Lions, obviously Jared Goff's going to move on. And to me, Jared Goff is a bridge quarterback. He's going to be the guy who is just going to be there in place for whoever they draft, whether it is Trey Lance, the quarterback out of North Dakota State, Justin Fields out of Ohio State, or even a Mac Jones out of Alabama. They're all not going to start right away. So Jared Goff is going to be that guy. And what he does is he helps Hawkinson and Swift in a way because of the fact that he just can't throw the football down the field. And he's also not a huge completion guy. So they're going to be able to run him in short routes, intermediate routes that they're going to be able to get creative with him because they're going to have to because of his accuracy issues. Now, Swift had a low opportunity share. He's going to be due for a massive workload in 2021. with Anthony Lynn, a guy who used Eckler to the highest extent last year, and even Austin Eckler with Melvin Gordon 2 years ago. What this is going to do is it's going to allow Swift to be used in the slot, allow him to be used out wide in a 5-wide formation, and it's really going to be something that benefits him. Now, the downside with Goff is the catchable pass rate. As you can see, 76.8%. And Golladay and Jones at an 83.75. We don't know their future, but with Golladay and Jones, they're likely free agents. And a guy that's going to be thrown out a lot is Quintez Cephus in Dynasty. If Jared Goff is the quarterback and they don't draft a strong pocket arm quarterback that's going to throw the deep ball, this is going to be concerning for Cephus if obviously those other guys leave, because Cephus, his dynasty value is kind of like Van Jefferson. It relies on these free agents ahead of him, and if they sign, then Cephus's value is kind of done for. But if they drafted Trey Lance, which I kind of want for them, or Justin Fields, it kind of helps Cephus. So if they draft a quarterback in this draft, I would be inclined to go grab Cephus in a league. If it's a 3rd-round pick, I'm all for that. Now, Anthony Lynn I hope he keeps the same offense, and that's going to be a question mark. Is he going to be able to use Swift in a way that he used Eckler? And if he is, Swift to me stays as a top 6 dynasty running back that I have in dynasty rankings, and even next to Alvin Kamara. Especially the age gap is the main reason in dynasty formats. If you haven't gotten into a league, I highly recommend you get into it. And then obviously the free agents on this team: Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones. It's going to be tough for Goff to throw the football if the wide receivers are Quintez Cephus and then whoever they draft, because they really don't have anyone else. Obviously, Danny Amendola is probably likely to retire. Adrian Peterson, they're going to probably sign another running back, whether it's a Marlon Mack, whether it is a Wayne Gallman. Somebody like that who's going to allow Swift to be able to be used in the slot and be used out wide if he needs to. But that's something to keep in mind with this with the Lions team. And it's going to be something huge for him, for Swift, because Swift had a low opportunity share, 31st in the NFL, 38th in snap share. So that's something that is for Detroit. He was the running back 10 in fantasy points per game, 12. And then was the running back 20 in only 12 games. So if he can keep that pace up, he's going to be a lock and load RB1 for me in redraft, and then a top 6 dynasty running back in dynasty formats. So overall, what do I think of this trade? I think it was mainly the Rams wanted to get rid of Goff's contract, because who wouldn't want to get rid of Goff's contract, and they saw the opportunity to get a quarterback that is actually contributing and is better at the deep ball and is going to be able to elevate their team. And they're going to go for a Super Bowl run. And so I think for both sides, this makes a lot of sense. Obviously, the Lions can take on the Detroit contract if they need to, and that's going to be something that's crucial for them, right? Because they're going to be able to take on contract and get those 2 first-round picks that they're probably going to end up using probably one or a second to try to trade up in this draft to take a quarterback. I think that's most likely. You could see a scenario where 4 quarterbacks are taken in the first 4 picks, with the Lions or the Panthers trading up to 3. So they're going to need the draft capital to trade up. So in my opinion, I think both sides came out on top. I think the Rams really wanted to get rid of the contract of Jared Goff, and are able to do so. And they're able to upgrade through Matthew Stafford. And for Goff, he's going to be a bridge quarterback, and it's going to be interesting to see if any team is interested in trying to get him for a playoff team. I don't think the Colts or the Washington football team would be interested, so that's something to keep in mind. But overall, I think both sides are winners. To me, the Lions are the bigger winners in this, getting the draft capital that they need to go up and trade for the quarterback of their future. And that's all I have. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't, and peace out, boys.